My name's Lynn Smith, and I work for the diocese in the Catholic Education Services, where I work with teachers and colleges. So today, March the 19th, we're celebrating the solemnity of St. Joseph, the beloved spouse of Mary and the earthly father of Jesus. And each year when this feast comes around, I think of my own father and the relationship that we had together. Sadly, Dad passed away in 1985 at the age of 54. And I often wonder, was that the same sort of age that Joseph was when he died? But the Gospel today from Luke talks to us about how Jesus was lost and found in the temple at the age of 12. And thinking of that, how Mary and Joseph must have been very frightened about the fact that they couldn't find Jesus, and then very relieved when they did find Jesus, albeit maybe a little bit surprised about what he was actually doing in the temple. I've never been lost, but I do remember a time when my dad came to help me out. I bought my first home and my car had broken down, and Dad, just like Joseph, came to my aid. Our business was car and commercial recovery as a family, and so when I said the car had broken down, Dad came along to see about it and to take it away. It's one of those few times that probably we ever sat down together as adults and talked about things. So Dad and I were sat in my little newly acquired terraced house on plastic garden furniture, because that's all I had, when we talked about big things that were happening in my life. That all of a sudden I was going to be making the decisions for myself as an adult. But I knew that if I ever needed help, that my parents would be there for me, and especially my dad. We sat for about 2 hours talking about, the things that were going on in my life. Dad was really pleased that I had earned my degree and that I was wanting to teach because that's something he'd thought about as a young man. But what was important was that he said I had to remember where I had come from. And I wonder if Joseph too felt the same when he saw Jesus moving on with his life in these kind of ways in which Jesus was sharing about who he was with other people. Sometimes we come to crossroads in our lives and we wonder, where is God taking me? What is it that helps me to move forward is prayer in those hard times, accepting that God is always with me when I move forward. Even if I stumble, I know that God is going to be with me. When my dad died suddenly in 1985, when I was 23, I found it very hard because it meant I'd lost someone who had always been like a mainstay for me and somebody whose personality I was very similar to. And that sometimes we had some fun debates around the dinner table. But I also thought, what can help me? And it was Dad's rosary beads. So I still have Dad's rosary beads all these years later. I carried them round with me for many, many years, but as they became a little bit more fragile, I have them in a safe place at home. When my husband Bruce died 3 years ago from cancer, it was also Dad's rosary beads that I turned to when I felt, and I still sometimes feel, lost over that. Pope Francis, when he was inaugurated as Pope on this solemnity in 2013, he said something, I think, which resonated with me in his homily. That here, he says, I want to say one more thing about St. Joseph. He said he was caring, he protected, and he demanded goodness. It calls for a certain amount of tenderness in the Gospels. And he says St. Joseph always appeared as somebody who worked hard, like any hard-working man of the time, and I think of the time today. And he said what was important was that we didn't worry about being gentle. And for me, I think, that's where I see my dad. My dad was a hard-working man, and so was my husband. Incidentally, they were both mechanics, so I've always gone for people who can fix my car. And yet both of them were very gentle men as well. So as I reflect on this gospel passage of Jesus being lost and found, I wonder, when am I lost? What do I find? And for us who are thinking about it, listening to and reading this gospel today, what sort of things make you feel lost? What sort of things help you to be found again? Or are you able, as Jesus said, why are you looking for me? Did you not know I'd be in my Father's house? That's where Dad and Bruce are, and one day all of us hopefully will be there too. So tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you for listening, and God bless you and your families in this Lenten time.